They say that change is the only constant in life. In this season of Swimm Upstream, we're breaking down specific instances of change in software organizations when both technical and human aspects were involved. And now for part 2 of our episode with Jason Gauci, Director of Software Engineering at Argo AI and host of the Programming Throwdown podcast. So what was it about the first success that brought on the second one? What was it in the experience that you had with your first champion that got you in the door that you couldn't get into earlier?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I think what happened was there's champions all over the company, right? Or if you're a startup, there's champions all over the market, right? But it's hard to raise awareness. They're busy people. There's a lot of things that they're focusing on. They're balancing between sure wins and risky things. And so we did a really good job of, like publicizing what's going on with this one team. We had a group that was dedicated to, reinforcement learning and these other technologies inside the company. And we were sharing things to this group, like, look, we had this win. And so there was another team that was really like right on Facebook's roadmap, but it was doing a very similar problem to the team that we were helping. And so there was another champion on that team who saw what was going on and said, "Oh, like there's an arbitrage opportunity here," right? And so
Okay.
that's kind of how it spread.
And it sounds like this is not only like Jason, which just came here like a few months ago, and with these new ideas, and maybe he doesn't know about Facebook and what's going on here. And I don't know if I should go down this road with this person. Now it's Jason and this team that's been working with him, and they've done stuff, and they crossed a few hurdles, right? So it gives a better feeling of trust that. This makes sense. I should invest at least a little time in this, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, so the second team, it sounds like you had your work cut out for you at the second team as well, but you had a starting point. And what was that enough after succeeding with the second one? Did it click? Did everything go from there because this was on the critical path?
Yeah. So what we learned is there's a set of problems that this type of technology is really good for, and a set of problems that it isn't. And so it took years even after that to really figure out, a set of rules to know that in advance.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in the beginning, even after we had had a few successes, our hit rate was still maybe 50-50 at best. And so what that meant was, there were and now, at this point we're a whole team, and there were people on the team where they kind of felt like their career was a slot machine. It's like, well, I pulled a slot machine, and I got triple bars because I worked with this team and there was a big win. This person next to me pulls the same slot machine and gets nothing. And so as in general, it's extremely challenging to be a leader in a research lab, especially one where you're an applied research lab, servicing the rest of the company for this reason, because the risk profile in the short term, is not very appetizing. And so, especially junior engineers, are really intimidated by something like that. What I tell folks is, we're all kind of in it for the long haul. And so in the long run, we all have successes, if we work hard. But yeah, to your point, once we got this sort of flywheel going, it's still a matter of we need to try it out and cross our fingers. And over time, we built tooling and we built rote understanding of these problems to where we can we can get good signal in advance.
It sounds like it doesn't work in all cases, but it sounds like it's much more mainstream now to work that way, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, is that what you expected to happen in the end? Was that surprising?
The thing is, so I personally felt like this was the right thing to do. and I personally felt like this was going to work out. It made a lot of sense to me, and it was just a matter of finding the right way to do it. What I didn't know is that it would work out before I got fired. And so I remember having this discussion with my family like, look, like I have a personal reputation to maintain here. Like things are not going well. We're 18 months in and I haven't really added value to the company. I don't feel good. Company doesn't feel good. And, maybe, I should just hit the eject button on this and like start job hunting and stuff like that. I thought about it. What I decided was, I've never quit anything. I mean, I've left things, but I've never quit anything. And I thought, I'm going to open source this. so, so if I get fired, I'll have the source code. I can keep working on it and like
Wow.
keep this idea going. And of course, the company is more than happy to let me open source something that didn't work. And so I open sourced it. I kept working on it, and we got it to work. But there were definitely times where I felt like it's the right idea, but it just for whatever reason we just aren't going to be able to make it happen.
Okay. So first of all, this is an amazing story. It reminds me of stories I've heard about academia as well, where you have two researchers, both sitting in their labs on a particular subject matter. One ends up with a Nobel Prize, right? The other ends up with not a lot to show, but it's also a matter of like chance and luck, right? If you want the chance to get that Nobel Prize, right, you need the perseverance.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that you have many chances, and so with the grit and the perseverance, it's really your expected value over all of these chances, and that you have a lot of control over with the right sort of work ethic and discipline.
So knowing, like, identifying these chances and taking the right risks.
Yeah,
Is that what you mean?
exactly. So I think similar to the podcast where you kind of learn your audience and you kind of adapt and you kind of focus on. So in the podcast, we focus on producing really great content and we always try to improve on that. And so with this project, we're focusing on, can we improve the developer experience and can we ultimately improve their business metrics? And so, we just kept focusing on that as we went from person to person, as we talked to different customers inside the company. And, I think, with enough time, I feel like even if the core idea hadn't worked out, we would have pivoted and we would have ultimately been successful because we're people who were just working super hard at it, really passionate about it. I think broadly speaking, we would have found a way. I'm just really happy that we were able to get the core idea working.
Right now, you're working in a very different situation, right? A startup as opposed to a very big company. But if you were speaking with someone like you in the situation that you were in, what tips, like takeaways, would you give that person to maybe have? Maybe you'll say this is going to be very hard. Expect that, and there's nothing you can do about it. But maybe you're going to have tips for them to make that road a bit quicker. Are there any?
Sure. So yeah, to your first point, so I ended up Reagent now, which is our reinforcement learning library. You can go to reagent.ai and still get the source code, even though it works. They let us continue to sync the source code between Facebook and GitHub, so you can go and download it. And I took a pretty long leave of absence when my second son was born. So I took a paternity leave and I took vacation. And then Facebook has this sabbatical program. So I took that. And when I came back, the org was just as healthy as ever. It was amazing. And so I thought, this is an opportunity for me to find sort of my personal next challenge. And so yeah, I've been at Argo for a few months now, and we're spinning up a machine learning center of excellence where we're going to help all the different machine learning efforts across the company and provide a bunch of services and infrastructure for those folks.
So that does resonate what you described in Facebook, right? I mean,
Yeah,
Am I right?
exactly. Yeah, it's very similar. I think that it's more broad than reinforcement learning, right? There's a lot of different. Actually, autonomous vehicles touches on almost every different discipline in some way, shape, or form, right? I think that if you look at the way things move throughout the world, and if you look at the description or the scene, you could treat a lot of that the same way you would treat prose in a book. And so you can use a lot of the transformers and a lot of that technology to kind of capture a certain scene on the machine learning side. And so, yeah, it turns out almost every discipline, obviously computer vision, but then obviously, machine control theory and all of that plays a part as well. So it's really a culmination of a lot of different things together at one place, which I think is really fascinating. One thing to that I learned over the years is to really have a good sense of pace. So there are times when you might not need to be in the office that much, right? Or
Mm.
and now that I guess that metaphor doesn't work. There are times where you don't have to work that much. And then there are times when every single minute counts, right? And so there are times when I would go before COVID, I would go into the office and Facebook has an arcade, and I would go to the arcade. And I would play games. I would eat some barbecue for lunch. I would talk to some people. I would stop by the web speed team and talk to some friends over there. Now and make it back to the AI building. And then there were days where I would get into the office at 8 a.m. and I would actually leave at 8 a.m. Like I would see the cleaning crew, like the same cleaning crew, like four times. And I have a standing desk. So I would stand for 24 hours straight writing code.
Oh dear.
Um, and I think that, it's really important. Actually, both of those dimensions, like both of those extremes, are equally important. I think if you feel, I guess guilty or you feel like you're not contributing when you're relaxing, then you can't, do that time when you feel that burst of energy, that momentum, that inspiration. You're not going to be able to put as much into it there as well. So be confident in yourself. Um, Follow the kind of like your core beliefs, your core philosophy, and be confident in them. And then pacing, I think, is the second most important thing.
Sounds like you recruited some important people along the way that helped make this happen. You explained about how you found them, but any advice about how to recruit someone to your cause?
I think an important thing is to don't be afraid of being kind of outspoken, and really promoting your ideas and promoting yourself. I was really passionate about this idea, and so even though we didn't have any proof it worked, I created this group. And the other thing is similar to what I was saying before. If you're on the real vanguard of something, then there's a ton of opportunity for you to claim a lot of land. I mean, I was actually at Fredericksburg, Texas, a couple of weeks ago, and it's a place that has an awesome pioneer village where you can see the first people to settle in this area. And so you could get land literally for free. I mean, if you were willing to settle and defend yourself against the Native Americans that were constantly like attacking, like that is really what was going on. But
Yeah.
you would get huge tracts of land for free. And so similarly, when you're really on the vanguard of something, yeah, there wasn't like a reinforcement learning group, there wasn't a big community, and so there was a big hole to fill there. So in the beginning, you can really, create a whole market there, and you can get, people really excited. And now there's people who join Facebook who go straight into the reinforcement learning group, even though it didn't even exist before. So I
They
think
don't
that
know how much struggle there was, right?
yeah, that's true. Actually, I have a story along those lines. I met Vince Cerf one time. It just happened. Somebody asked him, "Why are you so famous? You invented." And I have to admit, this is way before my time. So I think he invented TCP or HTTP or something like that, but or maybe both. I don't know. But they said, "Well, HTTP is just this thing. I mean, anyone could have invented it." And then he said, "The hard part wasn't just writing the spec for this. It was going crisscrossing over the whole country, getting people to adopt this thing, right? And
Wow,
so,
that really resonates with the story, right?
yeah, exactly. And so, yeah, I guess, as I said before, being on the vanguard of something, it's a lot like wasting your time, and only in hindsight you say, okay, that was a good idea. The other thing is, there's so many things I worked on that didn't go anywhere, right? So,
Yeah,
I think, you know, um, that person who got the Nobel Prize, even in your analogy, right? The person next to them didn't get the Nobel Prize, but both of them probably did 50, 60 projects, and only one Nobel Prize came out of that. And so,
yeah.
I actually have a blog, threadpool.cc, where I list all of my various projects, most of them failures. And I just kind of, it's a much more casual kind of blog. And I just kind of talk about, okay, here's the steps I went through. I tried to build my own 3D printer. It melted itself, and this is what happened. And gives people kind of a feel of what it's like to, have a whole bunch of different threads going, and being able to sort of see things fail, see things succeed, but try to learn as much as you can from everything.
So I think maybe we can sum up by saying that being at the vanguard is can be the absolute best, but also the absolute worst. Would you agree?
Yeah, definitely. And if you have a lot of balls in the air, then it's kind of both at the same time. So
Yeah.
at any given time, there's something on fire, and there's something that's hitting a home run.
Amazing. And you also have a podcast as well, right?
That's right. Yeah. So we have Programming Throwdown. So we've been doing that for, oh gosh, maybe like 12 years or so. And we try to interview, we interviewed folks from Swimm, and we try to interview as many people all across the industry as possible. And we'll mix that in with some shows where it's just Patrick, my co host, and I talking about various topics. But we set that out to ultimately teach people not how to code or how to be a good engineer, or these things you can learn online or from books. We wanted people to feel like what it's like to do that job. I think that there's this misconception. There was this movie that came out, Office Space, came out in, I think, the 90s, and it's just, you're in this cubicle by yourself. You have this one-way communication from this boss with the big coffee mug, right? Do the
Yeah,
TPS
yeah, I
reports.
know
Yeah.
that.
And the reality is, being a software engineer is a lot like being an artist. And I look at these things that we've built, like each of them is their own Sistine Chapel, and they're works of art, and they're beautiful. And so, and you commission an artist, and you trust an artist. You don't tell an artist what to do. And so, I wanted to, share kind of like how that relationship works, and how that feels, and that creative energy, and let people know, especially high school and college folks, know what that's like. And so we've been yeah, doing that ever since. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been amazing to see the podcast grow. For the first few years, it was just, maybe our parents, and so, our moms. And so I honestly couldn't tell you what made it take off. I think we just kept, trying to create better and better content. Every piece of feedback we got, we listened to it, and we tried to adapt. And over time, it grew to what it is today.
This was great. Thank you so much for coming on today. That's all the time that we have, and I hope to do this again, either in this podcast or on yours.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. It was really, really fun. And yeah, check out Programming Throwdown. And yeah, if anyone out there has any questions about, how to go 0 to 1, I think the word is being an intrapreneur, how to be an entrepreneur inside of a giant, multinational. Definitely, feel free to hit me up on Twitter. I'm Neural Nets for Life on Twitter. So
Thanks everyone for tuning in. That's all the time we have for today. To read episode transcripts, check out our past season, suggest an episode, or join our growing community of developers, head to swimm.io. That's swim with 2 M's.io.